The biting chill of the Alaskan wilderness gnawed at my skin as I embarked on a solo hike through the desolate terrain. The rugged mountains loomed overhead, their peaks disappearing into the low-hanging clouds. I, a seasoned hiker, reveled in the solitude of the vast, untouched landscape. The crunch of my boots on the frozen ground echoed through the silent expanse. The sky, a canvas of muted grays, threatened snow. As I trudged forward, a sense of isolation settled in. The only signs of life were the occasional caw of a distant crow and the rhythmic beating of my own heart. Hours passed, and the wilderness seemed to swallow me whole. It was then that I stumbled upon a weathered, abandoned cabin, a relic of a time long past. Intrigued, I cautiously pushed open the creaking door and found a single tattered journal resting on a dusty table. Curiosity getting the better of me, I began to read the entries within. The journal belonged to a man named Elias, who had ventured into these very mountains decades ago. His entries chronicled his growing unease as he explored the unforgiving landscape. He described odd sounds in the night, shadows that seemed to move on their own, and an ever-present feeling of being watched. Elias's words sent shivers down my spine, but I dismissed them as the product of an overactive imagination. As night fell, I decided to rest in the cabin, convinced that my own experiences would not mirror those of the long-gone Elias. As the hours passed in the dimly lit cabin, a sense of unease crept over me. The wind outside howled in a mournful symphony, and the walls of the cabin seemed to creak in response. I tried to shake off the growing anxiety, attributing it to the eerie tales within the journal. Yet an unsettling feeling persisted. Just as I convinced myself that I was being paranoid, a soft, distant whisper echoed through the cabin. Panic seized me as I strained to discern the source of the haunting murmur. It seemed to carry a warning, a message from the very wilderness itself. In a fit of trepidation, I grabbed the journal and hastily left the cabin, desperate to escape the growing malevolence that permeated the air. The once serene landscape now felt foreboding, and the shadows danced with a sinister intent. The chilling wind carried with it the ghostly echoes of Elias's warnings. I quickened my pace, but the forest seemed to close in around me, each step heavier than the last. Fear gnawed at my resolve as I realized the truth of Elias's words. Something ancient and malevolent lurked in the heart of these mountains. With each passing moment, the whispers grew louder, the shadows more menacing. Exhausted and terrified, I stumbled upon the remnants of an old ritual site, marked by weathered stones and worn symbols. The realization struck me. Elias had faced the same malevolent force, and now it sought its next victim. In a desperate bid to escape, I sprinted through the dense thicket, the ghostly whispers fading behind me. As I emerged from the suffocating woods, I felt the weight of the mountains lift. The Alaskan wilderness, once a pristine sanctuary, now held a darkness that I could never erase from my memory. The ghostly warnings of Elias would forever haunt my dreams, a reminder that some secrets buried in the frozen expanse should never be unearthed. The frozen expanse sprawled around us as my friend and I embarked on a wilderness adventure, seeking the beauty of solitude amid the icy terrain. I won't use our names for privacy. The biting wind cut through our layers, and the crunch of snow beneath our boots echoed in the serene quiet. In the distance, we spotted a weather-beaten cabin, a potential haven from the harsh elements. Despite a sense of caution, we decided to investigate, pushing open the creaky door to reveal an abandoned dwelling frozen in time. Discarded belongings scattered on the floor hinted at a life interrupted. As we explored, we stumbled upon an old journal, its entries chronicling the experiences of a hermit who sought refuge in this very cabin. The writings grew increasingly erratic, describing an ominous presence that tormented the writer into madness. Brushing off the eerie warnings, we settled in for the night. As darkness enveloped the isolated cabin, a distant howl echoed through the stillness. We dismissed it as a wolf, but an uneasy feeling lingered in the air. Lying in the creaking bed, an unsettling realization dawned upon us. The hermit's words were not mere ramblings. The atmosphere in the cabin turned heavy, and an otherworldly presence seemed to materialize. Whispers teased the edge of our perception, and shadows danced with an eerie life of their own. Panic set in as we realized we were not alone. A spectral figure, cloaked in shadows, emerged at the cabin's entrance. Its eyes, devoid of humanity, locked onto ours. Fear gripped us as we witnessed the manifestation of the hermit's tormentor, a malevolent force that defied reason. Desperation drove us to fumble for an escape, but the cabin seemed to conspire against our flight. The walls closed in, suffocating, and the temperature plummeted. The shadowy figure advanced with malevolent intent, its unearthly presence permeating the air. Terrified, we stumbled backward, our breath visible in the icy chill. The whispers grew louder, a chorus of incomprehensible voices echoing through the frozen cabin. In a final act of desperation, we burst through the cabin door, greeted by the bone-chilling cold of the Alaskan night. The entity pursued, its haunting wails echoing in our ears. We sprinted through the snow-laden wilderness, the shadows dancing at the periphery of our vision. As we escaped the ghostly clutches of that cursed cabin, the malevolent force receded, leaving us gasping for breath in the brutal embrace of the Alaskan night. The once inviting landscape now held a darkness that transcended the natural. The hermit's warnings had materialized into a living nightmare, forever etching the horrors of that night into our shared memory. The vast wilderness, once a sanctuary, concealed secrets that defied comprehension. As we stumbled back into civilization, the haunting whispers and lingering shadows served as a chilling reminder that some tales are better left buried in the frozen expanse of Alaska's wilderness. Seeking the solitude of nature, I decided to take a hike. The crisp Alaskan air and breathtaking scenery were my only companions. One day, deep in the heart of the wilderness, I stumbled upon an old, weather-beaten cabin. Deciding to take refuge for the night, I pushed open the creaky door, only to be met with a pungent odor that clung to the air. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I noticed a disheveled man huddled in the corner, his wild eyes staring into the distance. The stench of decay filled the cabin, and my unease grew as I realized this man was far from ordinary. He muttered to himself incoherently, his gaze never meeting mine. The tattered remnants of his clothes and the matted hair on his head suggested a descent into madness. Fear gripped me as I realized I was not alone in that desolate cabin. I was trapped with a man on the brink of insanity. Just my luck, I think to myself. In a desperate attempt to maintain some semblance of normalcy, I cautiously approached the deranged figure. His gaze locked onto mine, and a guttural growl escaped his cracked lips. The air became heavy with tension as I navigated the narrow space, inching closer to the unsettling stranger. The dim light revealed his sunken eyes and a face weathered by years of solitude. The man's movements were erratic, his hands twitching involuntarily. The remnants of a once human soul seemed to flicker within his haunted gaze. It became apparent that this man had long lost touch with reality, his mind consumed by the unforgiving wilderness. As I contemplated my escape, a sudden movement caught my eye. The man lunged towards me with an animalistic ferocity, his movements fueled by a primal instinct. Panic surged through me as I dodged his grasp, my heart pounding in my ears. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I fled the cabin, leaving the deranged man behind. The haunting echoes of his guttural growls followed me into the darkness of the Alaskan night. I stumbled through the unforgiving terrain, the howling wind a constant reminder of the isolation that surrounded me. The encounter with the crazed man lingered in my thoughts, casting a long shadow over the once serene landscape. Exhausted and haunted by the ghostly whispers of the wilderness, I eventually found my way back to civilization. The memories of that encounter would forever haunt my dreams, a stark reminder of the thin line between sanity and madness in the harsh, unforgiving wilderness of Alaska.